All right, let's talk about something that so many of us feel, but almost never talk about. It's this secret sense of being a fraud, and it's officially known as the imposter phenomenon.
Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever gotten that big promotion, or maybe you just nailed a huge project, and instead of feeling proud, there's this little voice in your head going, uh-oh, I've fooled them all? You know that feeling that any second now someone's going to figure you out?
Well, if you're nodding along right now, I want you to know something really important. You are so not alone. This feeling is incredibly common, especially for people who are really successful. And yeah, it actually has a name.
So what is this feeling, really? Let's get into it.
So way back in 1978, a couple of psychologists, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, they gave this thing a name, the imposter phenomenon. And they defined it as this internal feeling of being an intellectual phony. Basically, it's that nagging belief that you didn't really earn your accomplishments. You think it was just luck or a fluke or that you somehow tricked everyone. Even when you have a mountain of evidence that says you're awesome. And that's the key right there. It's not that you aren't successful, it's that you just can't seem to believe it. And this feeling isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It shows up in different ways for different people. For some, it's the perfectionist. If it's not absolutely perfect, it's a total failure. Or maybe you're the expert, who feels like a fake if you don't know the answer to every single question. Then you've got the soloist, who thinks asking for help is a sign of weakness. And finally, the natural genius, who believes if they have to work hard at something, they must not be smart enough. See if you recognize yourself in any of those.
And this is exactly why it's so tricky to deal with. This quote, which is from a Reddit user, just hits the nail on the head. They said their brain has always been this way, so they have no idea when it's, doing the thing. When that voice of self-doubt is all you've ever known, it doesn't feel like a phenomenon at all. It just feels normal. It's just the background static of your own thoughts.
Okay, so the big question is, why? Where does this stuff even come from? Well, it turns out the roots of this self-doubt can go way back, sometimes to our childhood and even down to the wiring of our brains.
The original researchers found a couple of common patterns in families. In one scenario, you have what they called the sensitive child. Maybe their brother or sister was always called the smart one. So when the sensitive one succeeds, they don't think it's because they're smart. They think, oh, I just charmed them. On the flip side, you have the perfect child, the one who was told they were brilliant at everything. For them, the belief becomes, if I'm really smart, everything should be easy. So the second they have to actually try hard or struggle with something, boom, they think, I must be a fraud.
You can see how these early experiences could lead to perfectionism, right? And perfectionism is like gasoline for something called rumination. That's just a fancy word for when your brain gets stuck on a hamster wheel of negative thoughts, just going over and over and over them. It creates this vicious cycle of self-doubt that just feeds itself.
And get this isn't just a state of mind. It's actually happening in your brain. Research shows that people with these feelings often have an overactive amygdala. That's your brain's little alarm system for fear. At the same time, their prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for overthinking, is also in overdrive. To top it off, a dopamine imbalance can literally make it harder for your brain to get that, hey, I did a good job feeling from your achievements, so you never actually feel the success.
Right, so this isn't just some internal battle that stays locked away in your head. Oh no, it spills out into the real world and can have some pretty serious consequences. It creates a really damaging cycle.
Here's how that cycle often plays out. It might start with something from the outside, like biases at work or stereotypes you run into that plant these little seeds of doubt. Then you start to internalize that doubt, and it grows into full-blown imposter phenomenon. And the stress, oh my gosh, the constant stress of trying to keep up the act, of feeling like you have to prove you belong, that leads straight to burnout.
And we are not talking about a small problem here. The scale is just staggering. Just look at medicine, a field packed with some of the highest achievers on the planet. More than half of all doctors in the US say they're experiencing burnout. That's not just a statistic, that's an epidemic. And if you look even earlier at the students who are becoming doctors, you can see where it starts. One study found that almost half, 49% of female medical students and about a quarter of male students are dealing with imposter phenomenon. Just think about that. That's a huge chunk of our future doctors walking around feeling like they're fakes.
And the fallout doesn't stop at burnout. It's tied to chronic stress, anxiety, depression, people being less happy in their jobs. It even makes people shy away from new opportunities and promotions, which stalls their careers. And in a field like medicine, doctor burnout is directly linked to patient safety. So you see, this isn't just a you problem. It's a we problem. It has ripple effects everywhere.
Okay, that was a lot, and it's pretty heavy stuff. But here's the most important part of this whole conversation. You are not stuck. There is good news. It is absolutely possible to start rewiring that inner critic.
And the journey starts with a really powerful idea: self-compassion. Just think about it for a second. If your best friend came to you and said they felt like a total fraud, what would you do? You wouldn't agree with them. You'd remind them of how amazing they are. Self-compassion is just about learning to be that good friend to yourself.
Clinically, one of the best tools we have for this is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It sounds complicated, but it's really practical. It's a process. First, you just learn to notice those imposter thoughts when they pop up. Then you start to question them, to poke holes in them. Are they really true? You might even do little behavioral experiments, like turning in a report without rereading it a dozen times, just to see what happens. It's all about learning to be kinder to yourself and building a more realistic picture of who you are and what you can do.
But look, you don't need to wait to see a therapist to get started. There are things you can do right now. One great tip is to keep a success file. Seriously, just a folder in your email where you save every nice thing a boss or a colleague says about your work. So the next time you feel like a fraud, you can open it up and see the proof. You can also just start paying attention to how you talk to yourself. And a huge one, surround yourself with people who build you up, people who can give you a reality check when that inner critic is just screaming.
So I want to leave you with a question to chew on. The next time that little voice pipes up in your head, the one that says you're not good enough, that you've pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, what's one kind thing you could say back? Just one. Because honestly, learning to change that internal conversation, that's the very first step to truly owning all of your incredible success.